Garoppolo on there could be a benefit, but have they kind of burned that bridge?
We'll say this. Gardner Minshew is the best backup in the NFL.
I love Gardner. Welcome to 30 Minutes of Football with Legit Football. I am your host, Brian McFadden. I'm back. Took a little bit of time off, working on some things. I was not on last week. You got to see, I think, more of Jimmy. You definitely got to see more of Anthony, but I am back this week. There is football to talk about. We are in Week 15. I'm here with Jimmy Ray from NFL Stats at NFL_stats on Twitter. It's Tuesday. It's Power Rankings time. 4 weeks left of the regular season. Jimmy, I feel like the season just started.
Yeah, it definitely did just start like a couple weeks ago, and now we're 14 weeks in. We're in the fantasy football playoffs now, so that's about to get finished up. And playoff scenarios coming at you live. We have what's his face on the TV. I forget his name. Pulling out the whiteboard and the TV screen, seeing what
Steve
playoff chances.
Arnecki or whatever.
Something like that.
The Magic Wall guy.
The Magic Wall guy, the guy that does it all. So when that comes out, you know it's go time. It's the witching hour of the NFL season. So
where playoff teams become non-playoff teams and that's a mouthful. That doesn't really work.
Sense. Yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot to break down. I have not been on this show since I attended the 49ers-Dolphins game. Didn't end how I would have liked as a Dolphins fan, but a great game. I got to see the debut of Brock Purdy, the Brock Purdy show. I got to see it live, so that was cool. And what do you know? He did it again. So as we do every Tuesday, we are going to do a Power Rankings draft where Jimmy and I are going to take turns going from 32 all the way to 1. It's interesting, Jimmy, because we haven't done this in a couple weeks together. You know, rankings have changed. I know Anthony did it with you last week. I had to go 2 weeks where, normally I adjust my previous rankings, but my rankings were 2 weeks old at this point. So a little bit extra work on my end.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean I'm not ready. I'm ready to jump into this. You ready to get this party started?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Hey, the Colts didn't lose this week. That's reason.
No, they got the win against the bye.
They got the win.
They
dominated the bye. Jeff Saturday undefeated against the bye.
Yeah. Yep, and now they get to play the Vikings on a primetime Saturday game. So, but I digress. We'll see how it goes. Who wants to go
ask
first?
Anthony if the Vikings are beatable. We'll say that. We've got our producer Anthony Wayner behind the scenes. He's getting that timer set up. I see it ready to go. So I'm going to go ahead and say 30 minutes of football with Legit Football. Week 15 NFL Power Rankings draft starts now. I have no idea who's going first, Jimmy. So
I'll give you a little warm up. You can go first.
Okay, let's do that. Well, it doesn't get any easier than this. Another Texans week. They lost, but they almost didn't. They almost beat the Cowboys, but hey, as long as they continue to lose, we're going to go ahead and put them in at number 32. We got Jeff Driscoll showing because Davis Mills came back in after Kyle Allen obviously was no better, and I guess he left the game with an injury. Jeff Driscoll came in. Amari Rodgers, first NFL touchdown. I'm trying to find some silver linings here.
Yeah.
Damian Pierce did get injured, but you know what? You almost beat the Cowboys, so that's got to count for something.
Yeah, it's a moral victory for him. I think it's the perfect loss for a team that's obviously wanting to lock up that number 1 overall pick. So yeah, I had them at
that's
last.
all you can hope for,
well.
right? Put enough of an effort in there to actually feel like you're proud of yourself. I mean, you were last late touchdown away from beating one of the best teams in the NFL, but you still get to keep your number 1 overall pick. So kudos to you, Houston. Jimmy, let's hear who you have at 31.
I have the Denver Broncos, who just got eliminated from playoff contention.
That's right.
Russell Wilson had a pretty good game after they went down 20-0, and I was like, oh, this game is nothing. And then Jerry Jeudy ended up with 3 touchdowns. Russell Wilson did go down with a scary injury there, which is unfortunate because he was having himself a really good game.
Yeah.
He was getting out of the pocket, making plays. Finding Jerry Jeudy right after Jerry Jeudy had an outburst on the field. So I guess that's all you need to do to get Russell Wilson going. But they're a bottom team in the NFL, and I think they're in like the worst situation in the NFL right now.
Yeah, they really are. I remember saying when it was 13-0, I'm like, game over.
Right.
They're not going to score. But kudos, this is the best, at least for that period of time, this is the best the Broncos offense has looked all year. It helped that Mahomes threw 3 interceptions, put them in good field position, but it doesn't matter. They still scored. Hey, Marlon Mack, remember that guy? Even he got in the end zone.
Yeah, 60-yard touchdown.
Still, either way, they're at 31, officially eliminated from playoffs, as you mentioned. There is one other team that has been eliminated from the playoffs, and we're going to put them at number 30. That is the Chicago Bears. Yes, they're on a bye, but they're mathematically eliminated. Just as every week we've said since Fields has been playing better, that's your silver lining. You have your quarterback. There's no debate, I think, unless he drastically regresses, that you have your quarterback. So the draft capital you have, new coaching staff, still getting some young players. They hit on a number of draft picks. You just have to build from here, right? And you don't have to use one of the draft picks on a quarterback. So I had a bye. We don't have to talk anymore about them right now, but those are the 3 teams eliminated from playoffs. Let's get to number 29.
Yeah, Justin Fields versus Jalen Hurts next week, so that'll be fun. Next one I have is my Indianapolis Colts. All the way down here. I had them down here last week. They stay in this same spot. I already talked about them at the beginning of the power rankings. They moved up to 7th in the draft, which is always nice to see. Obviously, I'm at the point, and most people are at this point with teams lower in the power rankings. You want your team to do good. I think there's some part inside of you that you always want them to do good, but if they lose, it just doesn't hurt them. It doesn't hurt as much because they'll move up in the or move up in the draft, which doesn't even necessarily foresee that it'll be a good pick. But with some of the QBs in the draft, you want the Colts to get someone like that.
This is shaping up to be a good QB draft, and I can't imagine that Indy would not draft a quarterback, at least take a shot on one of these high upside guys. Number 28, this is a team that is coming off a win, coming off one of the best storyline wins of the year. That's the LA Rams. How about Baker Mayfield? In less than 48 hours on the team, had probably wasn't even completely off jet lag yet, barely had a playbook. Not only did he win, he led a 98-yard drive and threw a touchdown to Van Jefferson to beat this team, scoring 14 points in the last just over 3 minutes, down 16-3, and won that game. I loved that. I've always kind of liked Baker, so to see that happen, even if the Rams suck and he loses all the rest of his games, I just love that moment for him with everything he's had to deal with.
Yeah, that was a feel-good game for sure. And shout out to the wide receivers, Ben Skoranek, making a big play. That ball, I mean, it was just a go ball. It was like, hopefully he can catch it. What else can you do when we have 2 days of practice or no practice really? Throwing it, and Ben Skoranek made that play, and then Van Jefferson made that play at the end. That was huge. Other than that, the game wasn't too exciting, but Baker Mayfield made it exciting, and that's good for him. We'll see.
57 minutes of suckage and 3 minutes of absolute thrilling football. But you know what? Even before that, Baker actually, he looked pretty good in this offense. Now, who knows? They didn't really prepare for Baker on the other side, but there's a small part of me Baker Mayfield. Could Sean McVay, could that be a good match? We will see. I will say this. Yeah. I'm much more excited about the Monday Night Football matchup against the Packers this week because of the Baker effect. That alone is a good thing because the Rams have not been watchable all season. Number 27, Jimmy.
All right, I have a team who just lost their quarterback last night. It's very unfortunate, but these power rankings are for this season, and they've already been looking down. But with Colt McCoy as your quarterback, it's only going to go downhill from there. No offense to McCoy. That's just going to happen. He can't do as much as Kyler Murray. So the Cardinals are obviously the team I'm talking about here at 27. I'm not sure if they'll win another game this season. I bet they have a pretty easy schedule if you go and look at it. But this season's basically a bust at this point. It was very unfortunate. Last night it felt like an injury fest with all the injuries that were happening, and they just got the short end of the stick. But they were in the game for a little longer. Just that second half fumble from DeAndre Hopkins kind of broke the game in two and kept the Patriots secured for the win.
Colt McCoy has actually shown the ability to run this Kingsbury offense. At least there's not a huge drop-off. Obviously, the talent level is big between him and Kyler, but the offense itself as a whole hasn't been that much different with him in. So not a bad backup situation, but yes, this season was already done. The Cardinals just add insult to injury with that unfortunate injury to Kyler. Number 26, let's go ahead and put the New Orleans Saints. They were off this week, but the last time we saw them, they were doing what the Raiders were doing against the Rams and blowing a 16-3 lead against Brady on Monday Night Football. Dalton's still the starter. I don't really know. Not a lot to take away from Chris Olave is fantastic. You nailed that one, but your future quarterback is not on your roster. Your defense has been okay. And even in a horrible division, you're still, I think they're last place. Yeah, they're last place in the NFC South. That says everything.
Yep, and for my next pick, I have the team that they play this upcoming week, the Atlanta Falcons, who did just make a change at quarterback with Desmond Ridder coming to play. He'll have his first start against a solid Saints defense, so that'll be an interesting game, especially with the division that they're in. It's a very tight race. Any team could really make it if they play well enough. The Bucks are 6-7, and those teams, or Falcons, are one game behind. Saints are a couple games behind. So all four of those teams are in it. So this will be a big game for both of them. It'll basically
it'll be an elimination game, essentially.
Right, more or less. Yeah, for sure.
Arthur Smith should have made this change a while ago. I'm glad we did get to see Ridder. There was moments where Arthur Smith basically made it seem we weren't going to see Ridder at all, and he was just going to roll with Mariota all year. Mariota got injured. They were making the switch anyway, apparently. But yes, very excited.
I did see something that Marcus Mariota basically left the team at this point. I think he kind of chose to go on IR and leave the team. I saw an article like that. He kind of just he's done with him at this point. I don't think he was too happy about the benching. I don't know if it's because they're still kind of in the race.
Dude, you earned it. What do you? Yeah, you earned it. Your horrible play. The running has been great for the Falcons, but the defense has been one of the worst in the NFL, and Mariota's been a liability. So let's not spend any more time on the Falcons. Looking forward to seeing Ridder this week. Let's go ahead and put the Cleveland Browns at 24. Deshaun Watson looked better. I mean, he looked honestly a little bit like a train wreck. I mean, they didn't have any offensive touchdowns against the freaking Texans last week. This week, he looked slightly better, but he still didn't look great, and they were dominated by the Bengals. I mean, yes, I know it was close for a little while, but I never thought this game was in doubt. I thought Cincinnati controlled it start to finish, and until he starts playing better, this defense is shown to be very porous. Even the running game, Chubb, that's not as effective. Donovan Peoples-Jones and Amari Cooper have been productive. Njoku scored a touchdown, but other than that, I'm just not feeling this Browns team. That's why they're at 24.
Yeah, they have one touchdown over the past two games on the offensive side of the ball. At one point,
and that was, by the way, that was Njoku's doing. That wasn't some amazing pass by Watson. That was him throwing and Njoku taking it the rest of the way in the end zone.
Yeah, so not much to say about them right now. We'll see if they can get some wins with Deshaun Watson. I know they want to do that at this point because they don't have the first round pick anyways. Right. For my next one, I have the Pittsburgh Steelers. I honestly thought that they could win this game, and then Kenny Pickett went out with an injury, and Mitchell Trubisky came in and threw 3 picks, and that's not going to win you the game. It was still kind of close, but all those picks just killed them in this game, I feel like, and that kind of ruined their chances of winning.
Yeah, that's too bad. I mean, what was it, 3 interceptions? I mean, it was a couple of them. One in particular, that Patrick Queen interception was a fantastic play, but it was still Trubisky putting the ball in harm's way, costing them what should have been. I actually picked them to win this game against the Ravens. So they had shots, and they didn't pull it off. But here's a team I also picked to win in an upset, and they backed it up. The Carolina Panthers. I kind of want to see them win this division. I think that they're 4-3 under Steve Wilkes. And one of those losses was like a fluke loss to, who was it, the Falcons, with the extra point at the end of the game or whatever. Yeah. So I like how this team is playing. The defense is playing fantastic. Who was it, J.C. Horn, who had, 2 interceptions or an interception and a knockdown? He's played fantastic. Got the running game going. Even the third string running back, Blackshear, I think is his name. He got it. Yeah. It's just, I like the Sam Darnold playing within the structure of the offense. So they're going to keep rising. I would like to see, with as disappointing as the Bucs have been, I kind of want to see Carolina take this division. They're only one game back.
Yeah, I think most people would agree with you there. They're averaging over 154 yards on the ground per game over the past 7 games. So that helps out Sam Darnold and whoever the QB is. a lot, and that's kind of how they're securing the wins with running the ball and playing great defense so far. So good for the Panthers, and 5-8 and still in it. So that's awesome. For my next pick, I have a team who have lost 4 games this season when they're leading by 13 plus points. That's the Las Vegas Raiders. They could be a whole lot better if the coach could play while they're ahead, but it doesn't seem that he could coach when they're 13 points ahead or more.
They get so conservative. They play scared. It's crazy. What did he? What was the stat for Carr in the second half against the Rams? Like he had something like 14 passing yards or something insane, or they only threw the ball 4 times.
And Josh Jacobs was injured. They just kept going that route, and you could see that he was injured after some of those plays. And it was a 98-yard drive to end it. So, I mean, they were so close to winning it yet again. It just didn't come up. This season could be a lot different, but they're 5-8 now, looking on the outside for the playoffs. So another disappointing season for them. We'll see if – I feel like he'll be given another chance to coach another season for a little bit and see how it goes. But
he shouldn't. But, yes, I mean, the Raiders literally cannot afford to fire him. So they're kind of stuck with him. But I think we'll see other changes there, mainly probably at quarterback. Number 20, let's put the Green Bay Packers. They were off this week. Latest report is that Jordan Love might want to trade. If Rodgers comes back next year, that's going to sting for GM Brian Gutekunst and Matt LaFleur, because Rodgers not as good as he's been in the past. This Packers offense has suffered certainly since losing Devontae Adams. At least Jordan Love has looked good when he's come in, but if he wants gone, that's just a tough situation to be in. Not a lot else to say this week. As we mentioned, they're going to be playing the Rams on Monday night, so we can keep on moving, but Packers at 20 seems like a good spot.
Good spot, and they play the Rams next week. I have the Buccaneers down here towards the bottom. I know they're the number 1 team in the division. At this point, their division is not good.
It's a losing record, though. So
it's a 6-7. So it's very unfortunate for them. It's crazy that one of these teams will end up hosting a playoff game. Tom Brady's good, and he showed good sportsmanship at the end of the game, but they just got absolutely obliterated against the San Francisco 49ers and Brock Purdy and their defense as a whole. It was just a trouncing, and the Buccaneers aren't anywhere near able to compete at this point against a top 10 team, and so that's why I feel like they need to be this low.
Yeah, I agree. I had them at 17, so right around here. At least their defense has played pretty well all year, and the offense has been a problem, but this week everything was a problem, and the defense, like Brock Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant, just lit them up, running the ball multiple times, and he looked great doing it. We'll talk about the Niners later. One more pick before halftime. This is a team that we've got a lot of issues with on Twitter, but let's put the Giants at number 18. They're in a bit of a free fall. The one thing they had going for them, winning those close games, playing tight, defense making plays, and Saquon being productive, none of those things seem to be working now. They just got absolutely demolished by the Eagles. I don't have anything else to say. I think this is pretty good. They may continue to drop here, Jimmy.
Yeah, they started out 6-1. They're 7-5-1 now. The big game against the Commanders coming up. They tied last time. If they tie again, that'd be pretty cool, but that probably won't happen, so hopefully the Giants can pull out a win. Saquon's only averaging 3.3 yards per carries in the past 7 games. So,
yeah, the best game they've played was against Washington, and they tied at New York. This game is going to be in Washington. The Commanders coming off a bye. I don't have confidence. I haven't done my picks yet, obviously, but I'm already leaning towards picking Washington in that one.
Yeah.
Guys, legitfootball.com. I'll make this quick. You guys always hear me say this. If you are not subscribed, we give you a daily free NFL news roundup broken down into nice little bite-sized chunks, injury reports, the top 6 stories of the day, makes it so you can read it in 5 minutes or less to get on your day. Just go to legitfootball.com, enter your email address, sign up. You can always unsubscribe later. We're doing this all year long, every Monday through Friday. Don't forget to go to legitfootball.com, and don't forget to go to Twitter to check out Jimmy.
At NFL_stats with the playoffs coming up. It's my favorite part because you get to see how good a lot of teams or a lot of players are doing compared to other players in the past seasons. Obviously, we have 17 games now, so it's a little different, but you'll get to see maybe some seasonal records broken. So that's always fun to check out. So you'll get a first update on NFL_stats on Twitter. So go check it out. I don't have a check mark yet. I feel like I might need one soon with how they're pushing out that agenda there, but we'll wait and see. I'm verified. You can hear me right now.
He is a human being who does stats. I see him, therefore he is. There he thinks, therefore he is. Whatever that is. Yes,
go.
he pinches himself. There you go. All right, Anthony, get that timer ready. Let us go ahead and jump into the second half. We are starting with pick 17. It'll be you, Jimmy.
All right, I have the Jacksonville Jaguars coming in. I know they had a really good game against the Titans, pulling off a very solid victory against them.
I had them slightly higher. I'm kind of feeling the Jags right now.
That's good. Yeah, that's fair. I have felt that, and then I don't feel that the next week. So that's mainly why I kept them down here. I feel like they're wishy-washy. They lost really bad to the Lions. They beat the Ravens. Now they've beaten the Titans. I expected them. I bet on them to beat the Titans just because I had a feeling. I don't know why, but it was their first win in Nashville since 2013. Big shout out to Trevor Lawrence and Evan Ingram. Their passing game as a whole was insane. They didn't get sacked. Yep. Trevor Lawrence played amazingly. He's looking like one of the best quarterbacks in the league when he needs to. Yeah, and Evan Ingram had like 10 or 11 catches, 160 yards, a couple touchdowns, like 40 or 50 points in fantasy football. So if you started him, congrats to you. He's the tight end 4 in fantasy. So in case you're interested in fantasy stats, that's says a lot about the tight end market in fantasy and says a lot about how good Evan Ingram's playing right now.
Yeah, he's always kind of had that tantalizing talent. We expected him to. An injury was always a part of it, right, when he was with New York. But now that's a ceiling. That's a heck of a ceiling, especially as you mentioned, in a thin tight end market on the fantasy realm. I had this team at 18. I had the Jaguars ahead of them. But I'm going to go ahead and put the Seattle Seahawks. This is another team like the Giants who just surged early. And they have a lot of... I've said great things. I still think Geno's playing well overall, although he did have his first multi-interception game in something like 8 years. He's never thrown more than one, mainly because he hasn't been playing, but still, he's usually a very conservative quarterback, makes good decisions, did have multiple interceptions in this game. Their defense has not played as well as they were during that stretch earlier in the season. Kenneth Walker, they've had injuries. DJ Dallas was also in this game. They still have talent. They're still capable of winning. It's basically, if they lose Thursday night, they have no shot at the division in the NFC West. But I just see them trending in the wrong direction, and 16, 18, seems right.
Yeah, if their defense keeps they've let up 200 plus rushing yards in the past 3 games, 223 this past week against all of the Panthers running backs, and if Geno Smith makes those turnovers, makes those mistakes, the offense on the other team is going to run the ball in the Seahawks, and unfortunately that's not going to be a recipe for success for him. I think they can still bounce back. I had them a little higher, but I agree they've lost 3 out of the last 4, so they deserve to come back a little bit and we'll see what they're made of on the final stretch. But for my next pick, I have a team who won last night. The New England Patriots I have around here. I know they're 7-6, which is very surprising. I think I've said this at the very beginning of the season. I think they're kind of the middle of the pack team. They go back and forth just as much as the Jaguars, I feel like, do. They have solid performances from their defense with Bill Belichick leading that defense. But as a whole, they get lucky some games. They have skill some games. As a whole, I think I can't put them any higher with some of these teams that are above them.
I had the Patriots at 16. I think I'm not going to say anything about that. That's the right spot for them. Let's go on to number 14. I may get a little bit of flack for this, and I didn't see last week's show, so I don't know where you guys put the Titans, but I'm going to put the Titans at 14. Okay. This is another team. I keep getting these teams that are in free fall. We talked about the Giants, talking about the Seahawks, now we're talking about the Titans, but they're not just in free fall. They're getting handily beat. This is not a team who's like inching out and just losing those close one-score games. They got demolished by the Eagles. They just got beat soundly by the Jaguars. Derrick Henry was his old self in the first half, and then I think he had negative rushing yards in the second half.
2 rushing yards. 2 rushing yards compared to 120.
4 attempts for 2 yards or something compared to 120 plus in the first half. And that's their whole offense. Literally, you shut that guy down, and there's nothing else left. That doesn't, but their defense also is so susceptible, especially against the pass. They've had a lot of injuries on the offensive line. Vrabel's a fantastic coach. He always gets more out of his players than the sum of their parts. But man, it's just not looking good. And now the Jaguars are only 2 games out of the division. Now the AFC South is in question.
Yeah, I had them at 10 last week, 13 this week, so not too far of a difference there. But I agree with you. They're not looking good on the defensive side of the ball, especially their passing defense. And then when their rushing game gets decimated in the second half like that, they're not going to win games. So yeah, that's a good spot for them. And for my next pick, I have the Commanders coming off a bye as well. They're playing the Giants next week, so we'll see. I'd probably favor them against the Giants at this point in the season.
Yep.
I feel like
At home
Taylor
off the
Heineke.
bye.
Yeah. We'll see. It's a big game for him. Taylor Heineke definitely needs to step up. The defense needs to step up. The running backs, everybody really needs to step
They
up.
flexed that to Sunday night, right?
game.
That's the Sunday night game this week.
I believe so.
I'm
yeah,
pretty sure they.
I'm
that
pretty
to
sure.
Sunday
Yeah,
night.
because that's that'll be a fun game to watch, especially based on the context and the situation around the division right now.
I am glad that I get the next pick because I am happy to put the Detroit Lions at number 12. Look at them sniffing at the top 10. Look how quickly Anthony got that Lions logo up there. But hey, let's be real. They've won, 6 of the last 7, and the only loss they had was against the Buffalo Bills, and they nearly won that game on Thanksgiving. This team is about as hot as any team in the NFL right now on both sides of the ball. Aiden Hutchinson, I would say, had his best overall game of the season. I think he had a 92 PFF grade. They're running the ball. They're passing the ball. Jared Goff had one of his best graded games of the season. Now, granted, the Vikings, and we'll talk about them shortly, and I would not be... I would not have been bothered if you put the Lions higher than the Vikings in the power rank. It's just hard to put a 6-7 team over 10-3, but I think the Lions are a better team than the Vikings right now. Just a lot to like about this team. If this team continues to play like this, they will be in the playoffs.
Yeah, I asked Anthony before the show what he predicted we would put them at. He said 10. I had them at 11. You had them. You go ahead and put them at 12. So around this spot, that I'm sure either way, Lions fans are happy to see them this far. Just amazing. They have 25 plus points in 5 straight games for the first time since 1954, which a lot of their fans might not have been, weren't alive then. So it's nice to see the offense making plays and the defense stepping up, and Aiden Hutchinson playing extremely well as well. For my next pick, I have the Los Angeles Chargers after a win against the Dolphins. Justin Herbert is more than a social media quarterback. I think that was the biggest takeaway from social media this past week was, is Justin Herbert going to show up with all his weapons available? They did against the Dolphins team that I'm sure we'll talk about
with an
soon.
Exclamation point. They did.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, they played very well. I wasn't ready to put them above the Dolphins. I'm not sure if you were. They're 7-6 right now. They're inching close to the top mark, but they're playing a lot better than they were. And if they can keep that up, I just want to see more consistency from them. On both sides of the ball, but Justin Herbert also has the most passing yards ever in the first 3 seasons. So passing Andrew Luck, and obviously Patrick Mahomes didn't quote unquote play his first season, so that's probably why Justin Herbert has that record. But yeah.
So I picked them in the preseason to go to the AFC Championship game. This is a roster that's stacked across the board when fully healthy. We've had that issues with injury. They've also had coaching issues. This, I think, is the best they've looked all year on both sides of the ball. Herbert was unstoppable. This Dolphins defense has actually played pretty well. They're not top 10, but they're at least, I'd say, top 12 to 15. They're not a pushover defense. They played really well. They still shut down the run really well. They just couldn't slow down Herbert. And it helped that they have Mike Williams back. Keenan Allen is healthy. They still have Eckler. But this defense also played great. They took the recipe that the Niners defense used against Tua in the Dolphins offense last week. They did a lot of press. They disrupted the timing. We'll see if other teams continue to do that going forward. I had them at 12. So, I had them right around here. I could see them peaking. This could be the kind of team that peaks at the right time. This is absolutely a good spot for them. If they play like this, just like the Lions, I could see them in the playoffs. Just above them, I'm going to go ahead and put the Jets. Big matchup this week, Jets-Lions. We talked about it briefly with Anthony before the game began. The defense is one of the best defenses in the NFL, game in and game out. They're not quite on the level of the Bills. I know they beat them earlier in the year, but I think we can say the Bills are a better team than the Jets at this point. Mike White is injured, went to the hospital. I don't know if I've seen the latest on whether he's going to be available this weekend, but that's huge. If you're rolling out Flacco versus rolling out Mike White, that could be a big difference maker in this game. Curious to really dive into this and pick this, but Still, hey, Jets top 10 after 14 weeks. Got to be happy with that as a Jets fan.
Yeah, I think their defense holds up, and hopefully Mike White's okay. I mean, he went to the hospital in an ambulance after the game. He was getting smacked in the pocket.
No, he was
his ribs
pounded without
he was
Von
coming
Miller,
back in. I mean,
Bills pass rush.
Yeah, it was going, and it was insane to watch, and I'm just glad he's okay. And if he does, and Joe Flacco came in, and they were like, maybe not. Maybe we shouldn't play Joe Flacco after a couple of plays. Let's put in Mike White again. But yeah, hopefully he's okay. But he's got that dog in him, and I'm excited to see him rolling with the Jets. I think he's still the quarterback going forward at this point.
Number 9
this
on
next
you.
pick, this next pick, it's back and forth on some things, but I'm going to go ahead and put a team that's fallen. The record is 10-3, but I have the Minnesota Vikings down here.
All right.
Going back and forth on this, and maybe another team that we'll talk about later. But they have a negative point differential, the -1. That's the only team to do that with a 10-3 or better record at this point. They're the fifth worst in net total yardage, which I think is huge. They have Lions will be top 10 after next week. Okay, I mean that's fair. They definitely have a chance to win against the Jets. So
that last name is familiar.
Yeah, it is familiar.
It's Tyler's Anthony.
Okay, anyways,
brother. Good for you, Tyler.
Yeah, going back to the Vikings, they're fifth in net total yardage, so they're allowing a lot more yards than they are getting yards, which I think says a lot. I think their defense is kind of their downfall at this point. Obviously, Justin Jefferson had a franchise day, but it was the most quiet franchise day in receiving I think I've ever seen. 220.
I know.
Or 200 something yards.
Fanfare.
Yeah.
This guy had a monumental day, over 200 yards receiving. But there's another franchise record that the Vikings set. I don't know if you saw this. 5 straight games allowing 400 or plus yards. That's the first time in the history of the Vikings.
Yeah.
10-3 team allowing 400 or more yards in 5 straight games.
Yeah.
That's a liability. They have lost. I don't. How much did they lose to the Lions? What was the final score? They lost by 11, 13. Whatever that
something
is,
like that. Yeah,
that's the closest defeat they've had this year. They got absolutely destroyed by the Cowboys and the Eagles. Better teams are just handling them. I think if the Dolphins played them with Tua, the Dolphins would have won that game. So even though I did have Miami right behind Minnesota, I don't mind you swapping it here. Let's go ahead and put the Dolphins at number 8, Anthony. My big concern here is the fact that defenses have been able to disrupt this high-flying Dolphins offense 2 weeks in a row. They do 2 things. There's a lot of press coverage to disrupt the timing on Waddle and Hill, and then the linebackers are purposely playing deep to kind of take away that middle third. Is that a recipe that teams can use going forward? The Dolphins have a huge game against the Bills, much bigger than this Chargers game. The Chargers needed that win more than the Dolphins did. I'm really paying attention to see if the Dolphins and McDaniel can make the right adjustments to counter what probably is going to be the blueprint for every defense facing the Dolphins going forward.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better from a guy who went and watched them in person. Hopefully not the beginning of a downfall. Hopefully they can come back. But it'll be a very tough matchup because they're playing in some cold weather. I'm not sure if they're. I think I saw they had heaters. Yeah, I think they had heaters on the sidelines this past week. So we'll see.
In 55-degree weather, it's going to be a little colder.
Yeah, but I won't jump off the Tua bandwagon or his train or whatever you call it. I think he's still a good quarterback. But watching that game definitely hurt because you could tell that he just wasn't putting the ball where it was needed to for his wide receivers. But I digress. My next pick, I have the Baltimore Ravens, who went down to the third string quarterback against the Steelers, but still pulled out the win. Their defense has been the part of their team that's been helping them pull out their wins recently. They've won 6 out of their last 7 games. They're allowing 15.4 points per game. They got 3 interceptions against Trubisky. I mean, that's amazing to see, and hopefully Lamar can come back and help them out a little bit because that'll provide a good stepping stone for them. But they've definitely kept it close, and I don't think they're in the top tier of elite teams in terms of Super Bowl contenders. I think they're right around here with the Vikings and the Dolphins. Good teams with a lot of question marks. I'm sure you probably have them around here as well.
I had them exactly at 7. Yeah, so
Yeah,
we are
so.
fully aligned here. Roquan Smith has done an amazing job of
sure.
helping boosting that run defense, and of course we saw him with the interception this week. They won with their D. What's their quarterback's name? Anthony Brown.
Anthony Brown, yeah.
I never
Same
heard
name
of
as
that
the
guy.
cornerback for the, not the cornerback for the
go.
Cowboys that's injured right now.
Yeah. So obviously they need him back. I believe they play Cleveland this week, which is actually a pretty good opponent for them to get one more week before Lamar gets back. Number 6, I know the timer's about to run out. When that timer runs out, Anthony, give us 3 more minutes. We'll hit these top 6 teams. This is a team I could just see. I would not argue if somebody put this team at number 1, and that's the Bengals. I'm going to go ahead and put them at 6 because the teams ahead of them are just stacked and playing so well right now. But they could beat anybody in the NFL. Let's be clear. If you Bengals fans out here who feel they should be higher, they're still 9-4. They're still tied with the Ravens. They're not even in sole possession. They lost to Baltimore earlier in the season. They lost to the Browns a few weeks ago. But man, and they are dealing with injuries. It looks like Tyler Boyd's going to miss at least 1 week. T. Higgins left this game. He's day to day. But it's still Joe Burrow. The defense is also playing really well. This Bengals team is dangerous.
Yeah, for sure. And this kind of jumps into my next tier of teams in terms of legit Super Bowl contenders that I think are the favorites to make it to the Super Bowl and possibly win it. I had the Bengals at 3, so I had them a little higher than some teams just because I feel like they're so balanced on both sides of the ball. I feel like their defense, especially the pass defense, has been playing really well. Their offense has so many dynamic playmakers. But yeah, I think around this spot, as long as you have them around this spot, you're fine. That's what power rankings are. So. For my next team, I had some difficulty putting them down here, but they had a Bengals win the AFC this year, in my opinion. All right, that's completely fair. They did beat the Chiefs, and they're coming off some good wins there.
I can see it. It's very. Yeah. I mean, they did it last year, and they're looking just as good. So thanks, David.
Bengals,
I can't argue with that.
Bills, Chiefs. Throw in the Dolphins a little bit too. Throw in the Ravens. It'll be fun to watch the playoffs. I'm excited to get to those, but I'm enjoying the regular season as we go. Anyways, I have the Dallas Cowboys coming all the way back. I had them a little higher, but it was just a bad game against the Texans, and they were so close to losing. In my mindset, they basically, they pulled out the win, which I think is huge, but they basically kind of lost in terms of the eyeball test there. They had a 98-yard drive at the very end of the game.
I don't hold too much against them on this. I think maybe they overlooked it a little bit and they didn't take them as seriously. But we have seen their ceiling. Their ceiling is insanely high on the defense and the offensive side of the ball. And they beat the Bengals earlier in the year with Cooper Rush. That's why when I was looking at these two, I kept the Cowboys ahead of Cincinnati.
Yeah, that's fair too. I just think, they definitely could have lost this game, and I think if they would have lost it, we probably would have dropped them a little more. But they just played a tough game, and a lot of these teams at this point, 14 weeks into the season, have had tough games. Like the Bengals lost to the Browns, they soared back. So get these kind of losses out of your way, learn from them, and get ready for the playoffs.
It wasn't even a loss. If they lose this game, I might feel a little different, but they still found a way to win. They still found a way to win at the very end of the game, and that's what good teams do. They win those crappy games that they're not at their best. David will be happy with this next pick. Let's go ahead and put the San Francisco 49ers, also just absolutely one of the hottest teams in the NFL. Huge difference once Christian McCaffrey came on board. This defense, I'm going to say it, this is number 1 defense in the NFL. I know Dallas and Philadelphia, they might have things to say about it, but I'm a weekly guest on the 49ers Rush podcast. I know the Niners team well. This defense is playing absolutely lights out. They made Tom Brady look like Mr. Irrelevant instead of Brock Purdy.
Yeah.
But on the other side of it, Purdy, at least 2 games in, has absolutely surprised me. I know that we can say this offense is quarterback friendly, and it is. But we've still seen a Nick Mullins have bad games in this offense. We've seen Jimmy Garoppolo have bad games in this offense. If Purdy plays like he has these last 2 weeks, and this one even better, he played even better in this against a very good Buccaneers defense, then the Niners are definitely right there with the top teams in the NFC and could have Super Bowl in their future.
Yeah, they could be on a Cinderella story kind of with Brock Purdy coming in. I had them lower last week, and I made a mistake there. They should be up here in the top 5 teams in the NFL, especially with that defense. Hoping Purdy is good, not sold yet. Rest of the team is stacked. Yeah, you got to wait and see. I mean, Brock Purdy's had a good couple games, but obviously he could take a downfall there. But with the team around him, I think I think he's set up for success. Hopefully Deebo Samuel comes back. I think they said
like week 7, 3 weeks, week 18.
Depending on how the playoff picture is looking, they might hold out. They might wait and see. It just depends on the high ankle sprain.
They can lock up the division Thursday night in Seattle by beating the Seahawks.
There you go. And quick stat: they let up 44 points against the Chiefs a while back. Since then, they're on a 6-game win streak, and they haven't allowed more than 17 points. So their defense is rolling.
Which was to the Dolphins.
Which was to the Dolphins. The Dolphins are scoring some points against the 49ers. So, hey, that's a bright side. So
there you go. So
yeah, for sure. For my next pick, I go back and forth with a couple of these teams. I have the Kansas City Chiefs at number 3.
That's
I mean they're a very good team. Patrick Mahomes can make plays happen. I think these next two teams are interchangeable.
I just say Mahomes is just Mahomes. Yeah. It's just so fun to watch. You never know when he's gonna flip the ball underhanded around 3 defenders into Jerick McKinnon's hand for a 60-yard touchdown.
And this week it was Jerick McKinnon. Next week it could be Sky Moore. Next week it could be McCole Hardman. Travis Kelce, obviously. Shout out to him. He got up there and he's in the 10,000 receiving yards mark, which is the 5th tight end to ever do that. So shout out to Travis Kelce having a quiet, great year because he's the only tight end you can really trust at this point.
Quiet. I think it's everybody knows Kelce.
Yeah, everybody knows it. Yeah, everybody it's just gotten to the point where it's like Mahomes. It's just like it's the standard for them now. So that it might not be talked about Grimm's games and stuff just because it's expected at this point. But yeah, the Chiefs are headed to a possible Super Bowl yet again.
All right, there's the gong. I'm going to reveal number 2, which will reveal number 1. I'm going to go ahead and put the Buffalo Bills at number 2. I had them above the Chiefs. They did beat them earlier in the season, and I think they're kind of peaking a little bit. You know, the defense really showed up against the Jets. The pass rush without Von Miller looked phenomenal. Greg Rousseau looked great. Matt Milano, who has been very good all year, had one of his better games this season. If the defense continues to play like that, the Bills will always find a way to score on offense. So I just like how they're looking. And then, come on. I mean, can anybody argue with us at this point that the Philadelphia Eagles are the best team in the NFL? And who's going to come at us?
Nobody is. I mean, at the beginning of the year, they were like, the Eagles are fluky. You never know. But their first 3 drives, touchdown A.J. Brown, touchdown Devontae Smith, touchdown Miles Sanders. I mean, they're absolutely ridiculous. You can go on and on about the stats they're achieving.
There are no weaknesses. They do not see a weakness. You can say run defense, but even that has been better. Saquon didn't do anything. I know he's injured and he didn't get as many snaps, but they didn't even really use him in the second half. This Eagles team is phenomenal. Anybody can lose, but they are cruising and on their way to the first round bye and the number 1 seed in the NFC, and they're going to sit atop these power rankings probably at least for 2 more weeks. Even if they lose, they're still going to have the best record in the NFL.
Yeah, A.J. Brown, 1,000 yards, first wide receiver for the Eagles to do that since 2014. Jeremy Maclin, and then LaShawn McCoy, last 1,000-yard rusher before Miles Sanders, who just got his first 1,000-yard season. So the best team in a while for the Eagles, 12-1. They're looking good, and they don't look like they're stopping.
So to close out the show, instead of reading all 32, because I don't think people really care who's down at the bottom, Anthony, if you could let's go 10-1. Let's read the top 10 teams in the Legit Football NFL Stats Power Rankings for Week 15. We got the New York Football Jets after 14 weeks, still in the top 10 at number 10. Minnesota Vikings at 9. Honestly, I could see them continuing to drop. My Miami Dolphins at 8. Hopefully they can get things figured out on offense. Baltimore Ravens at 7 on the 3rd-string quarterback. Cincinnati Bengals at 6. Dallas Cowboys at 5. The San Francisco 49ers at 4. Kansas City Chiefs at 3. Buffalo Bills at 2. And the dominating Philadelphia Eagles at number 1. Anthony, I'm a little sad because the season feels like it's close to ending and I'm not ready for it to end. How about you?
We still got...
Don't say that. Okay, I take it back.
We still got 7-8 weeks left, and we got... If you count the Pro Bowl, we got even more football. But
and I'm going to watch the Pro Bowl this year.
Anymore.
It's like a flag football skills competition. I might actually tune in. Thank you, Jimmy, as always. Glad I could come back and do the show this week. We'll be changing around some things with Legit Football as far as our podcast. We may be introducing a new podcast. We got some things in the works. Stay tuned. Thank you for listening and watching. Like and subscribe if this is your first time listening or watching. This has been 30 Minutes of Football with Legit Football. We'll see you next time. That's spicy. Jimmy Garoppolo on there could be a benefit, but have they kind of burned that bridge?
I will say this. Gardner Minshew is the best backup in the NFL
I love Gardner.